The views expressed by participants in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the producers, sponsors, or promoters of this production or their affiliates. Washington University at St. Louis does not directly endorse advertisers' products or services.
Free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. You've probably heard these terms 1,000 times or more. But what do these freedoms really mean? Not what some people say they mean on social media or what celebrities or pundits want them to mean, but what they really mean in the context of where they're enshrined in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the fundamental law that is the foundation of our American system of government and justice. I'm Liberty Vittert, a professor of data science, a political analyst and commentator, and yes, I am also a TV chef. So what can I say? Like you all, I have eclectic interests. And lately, I've been fascinated, as I know you are too, by how Americans view and interpret the First Amendment, particularly at a time when what everyday people say and do is more publicly scrutinized than at any time in history. I mean, we're watching what young people post on social media when they're in high school. When were we ever scrutinized in high school? I really hope I'm not being scrutinized by what I said in high school. And what each of us as Americans can say and do privately and publicly, how we worship, who we love, what we read, watch, listen to, all of it is governed by the rights we have as outlined in the First Amendment. In this podcast, we are together going to examine how the First Amendment is interpreted, challenged, and defended in America today by tracing the history of each of the rights enshrined in it. We're going to explore the debates over what the government can and cannot say about religion. We're going to speak with experts about what the press can and cannot publish without the fear of being sued, and really try to understand when and why the government can and certainly will limit your right to free speech. Think about it for a minute. Can you name all 5 freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment? Go ahead. We're going to wait for you. Could you think of 5? Because I promise you the first time I tried it, I couldn't. So don't feel bad if you couldn't. A 2023 survey from the Annenberg Public Policy Center found that only 1 in 20 U.S. adults can name all 5. So what are they? Here's what the First Amendment states word for word.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
So in a nutshell, the First Amendment guarantees us all freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. And I know what you're thinking. Petition? Is that like the people standing outside the grocery store asking you to sign a form to stop a development or save a park, or the ones that get spread on social media? It's not quite that, and we'll get to that in episode 6. Let's start at the beginning. During the Revolutionary War, the 13 colonies adopted the Articles of Confederation, a first attempt to set up a framework for governing the brand new United States. But by 1787, the Articles were no longer cutting it. The states needed a constitution. So the founders met in Philadelphia to put their heads together to make a plan for a new national government. But agreeing on how exactly that government should function and what powers it should hold, not surprisingly, proved really difficult.
The Constitution was formed with a whole bunch of compromises. And what it ended up being incorporated in the Bill of Rights was kind of punted into the future.
That was political scientist and chancellor of Washington University in St. Louis, Andrew Martin. And as he said, there were a lot of debates about what powers the federal government should have and what should be left to the states. These debates included questions about the limits that should be placed on the government to ensure it wouldn't infringe on the people's fundamental rights. After the Constitution was ratified, it took about 3 years for Congress to codify the language into the 10 amendments that we call the Bill of Rights. But they didn't then look like they do now. Here's Joshua McDaniel, a professor at Harvard Law School and the director of its Religious Freedom Clinic.
It's important to recognize when they were initially adopted in the late 1700s, the Bill of Rights only applied to the federal government.
Meaning that
if you had a situation where you felt like the government was violating your free speech rights, it depends on the question of, well, which government are you talking about? And this was part of the compromise that went into the original Constitution.
So, for example, in those early days, while the First Amendment prohibited Congress, which is to say the federal government, from establishing a particular religion, it didn't keep individual states from establishing a religion. Michael Helfand, a law professor at Pepperdine University, explains this.
You have states that have their own religion. Some states, at least, force their citizens to pay some sort of tax in order to support ministers or support churches. We don't really get rid of all of the state establishments until the first quarter of the 19th century.
For the record, the Bill of Rights does apply to the states now, too. But that was a very long legal process spanning decades, much like a lot of the laws that we now deal with in Congress. And that's just how these things go. Maybe it's a good thing that government is slow. The First Amendment and the Bill of Rights, more broadly, have been shaped and reshaped by the social, political, and cultural environments at the moment that the courts, and often the Supreme Court, interpret them. And those interpretations ripple across our country, influencing our politics, our public discourse, and the boundaries of what we as Americans consider freedom. Over the next 5 episodes, we're going to delve deeper into each of these rights protected by the First Amendment, examine some of the landmark cases that have shaped them, and hear from the people who are truly at the center of these really interesting controversies.
The United States Supreme Court says that the public airways, television, radio, and other forms of broadcasting are not the place for what it calls dirty words.
I am Kelly Carlin McCall, and my relationship to this particular case is that I am the daughter of George Carlin.
In a narrow 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court says the Boy Scouts of America has the right to ban homosexual troop leaders.
My name is James Dale. You're probably most interested in what happened when I went to college and came out, and the Boy Scouts expelled me from the organization.
The Supreme Court has ruled that a high school football coach has the First Amendment right to pray on the field after games.
I'm Coach Joe Kennedy. I was fired for praying on the 50-yard line.
But you gotta be prepared. This history is shockingly quite raunchy, and much of what you hear is not safe for work and certainly not suitable for children. But I promise you will be entertained.
Did you ever say in the United States Supreme Court in a voice that could be heard, "You goddamn fucking assholes, all 9 of you, and you token cunt you"? Did you ever say that?
I called them 9 assholes, 1 token cunt, and I forgot to remind them that 8 of them were pricks.
Intimate details were revealed today in the Hulk Hogan trial. On the stand today, Hogan admitted he lied about the size of his manhood in past radio interviews.
I do not have a 10-inch penis. No, I do not.
Fair enough.
So let's get started, and we'll begin with the only freedom in the First Amendment that has 2 clauses dedicated to it, freedom of religion, and it is a doozy. This podcast was made possible through a grant from the Frick Initiative at Washington University in St. Louis. Richard Fawal and Liberty Vittert are executive producers. Noam Osbend is senior producer, Susanna Casisa is producer, and Trevor Hook is assistant producer. This podcast was written by Noam Osbend, Olivia Jampol, Liberty Vittert, Susanna Casisa, and Richard Fawal. Audio engineers are Ismael Balderas Wong and Jonathan De Leon. Sound design and original music composition by Ismael Balderas Wong. Stephanie De Leon Sick and Susanna Casisa did archival research, and Laura Krebs was our finance director.
Voxtopica.